Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to open the Board of Selectmen meeting, January 27th at 6 p.m. Good evening. This is a virtual Board of Selectmen's meeting. We are using the Zoom conference format. If you wish to make a public comment and speak on an agenda item, please use the raise your hand feature on your device. The moderator will be notified and will unmute you. Please identify yourself before making a comment. Do you have a number of participants, Dave? "15 attendees, thank you. Item 2, approve the January 13th Selectmen meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
And I didn't take a roll call, but Pat,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and Sheila says aye. Minutes pass. Item 3, public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone who wants to address the Board of Selectmen with any issue that is not on the agenda. Do you see any hands raised? Okay.
Oh, we have one.
Yes, hello. This is
Go ahead.
This is Ed Wright. I live on Langsford Road, number 18, with my wife Barbara, and I have a question regarding short-term rental applications and granting of those applications. And I don't know if that should be saved until item 12, where you're talking about short-term licensing. I can do it either way. I could talk about it now or then.
Lori, is this appropriate?
Why don't we ask, see what the question is, and then maybe we can determine.
Okay, I have questions about a pending application you have for short-term rental license at number 15 Langsford Road. For the Langsford and the KRC group, the owners and operators. Regarding the propriety of that, the viability of that application. Shall I continue?
Of course.
It's my understanding that that has been withdrawn, that application.
Oh, if that's the case, then I would have no further comment. Do we know that that is actually the case?
So let me just talk. I'll ask Werner to pop up here as well. In terms of the planning board application, that was withdrawn, as
Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware.
Yes.
In terms of the short-term rental license, we do have an application from 15 Langsford, but it has not been approved. It is at the staff level currently, where licenses get approved. And our staff is in conversations with the town attorney and reviewing that license application.
Okay, is there any forum for input as to the propriety of that application?
So the issue is that the license review is at staff level, and then the Board of Selectmen are the appeal board for a license if it is denied. So certainly it would be appropriate to discuss concerns with Werner and staff, but not at the selectman level. Werner, would you say that's accurate?
Yes, that's correct. So if there are specific issues, related to a short-term rental license application, then you can feel free to submit those to myself, Eli Rubin, or Andrew Welch. All three of us have been, active in the short-term rental licensing process. We'll be happy to take a look at those.
Okay, we have submitted a number of letters, and I I know that they have gone to you and to the board. So is that the best we can do at the current time?
Yep. Yeah. So thanks, Ed, for your letters. We're in receipt of all of those letters, and those have been passed on to all parties.
Okay, then I will leave it there. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Any other hands?
Hi, my name's Julia Layton, and my family and I have a summer home at 47 Langsford Road. And I just wanted to do just a quick follow-up to make sure I understand procedurally. So a follow-up to what Ed was raising about 15 Langsford Road. Our letters, I thought, were specific, or at least the one I wrote was specific to the request to turn it into an inn. Do we need to rewrite them, or will they be accepted as also a commentary on the impact of short-term rentals with 11 units?
So in terms of the letters regarding the inn, that is a different review process. Certainly staff have received those letters as well and are familiar with the content and subject matter contained within. The planning board does have different criteria to evaluate that application that is different than the criteria to evaluate a short-term rental license. But I understand the concerns that you have brought forward, and staff are weighing those with the town attorney.
Okay, so you don't need us to just for procedural processes to rewrite them or to present them in a different form. They'll do for this process.
Werner?
Julia, that's certainly up to you. If you'd like to, resend letters, then certainly, folks are more than welcome to do that. We don't need those in a different format. I mean, we're familiar with the questions and the concerns, that are related to 15 Langsford. But certainly if you feel the need to resend, but addressed in a different fashion, you're welcome to do so. But we're familiar.
Okay. I guess the only other quick question I have is and maybe you can put it in the chat if you have that, is just I assume we can send, if we need to send something, we send it to the same address we used before, but also to find the criteria that you use for short-term rentals. Is there some place where those criteria are set forth?
Yes, that's correct. Those are all located within the short-term rental ordinance that's located on the town webpage. If you'd like to send me an email, I'm happy to share that link with you if you'd like.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much. And thank you all for, I should have started here I've never, I don't believe, met any of you or come to a board meeting, but I do feel like I should always start by saying thank you for your service, because it's often a thankless job. So thank you.
There we go. Are you there? Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Oh, that's an interesting picture. Okay, so I have a couple questions to ask you. What date do the STRs start exercising their authority in the beginning of this year? Is it like January 1st you have to have the permit in order to rent your place out, or do they begin in 1st of May, 1st of June? When do they actually start? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, so the licenses run for the calendar year. And so what we've been working on is we've been reviewing applications. The application period opened in what do we have, November of last year. So we took a couple of months to review applications prior to, And it's a good question, and I think we'll have a little bit more of that as far as application eligibility and process later on in the meeting. But the licenses are for a calendar year.
So I understand we had to get them in by a certain date, but the idea is that you're not supposed to rent out a place in 2022 unless you have a permit, and not everybody's got them, I would think, by now. And so I just wondered at what time in the season do you have to wait until you have your permit, or can you just go ahead and start renting, assuming you're going to get one?
So we've been in communication with a good many of property owners. We've issued somewhere in the neighborhood of 390 of those so far. Those that have been issued, they're eligible to rent for this calendar year. Again, the discussion about additional licensing is something that'll be brought up later on in the course of the meeting.
So are you not eligible to rent if you haven't secured a permit yet?
So for short-term purposes, which is defined as the less than 30 days, you would be required to have a license to rent for this year. So if you don't have one yet, then we would encourage you to be a part of this discussion.
Good. Okay, I understand that. Thanks for the clarity. The other piece of it is the town wants to come in and inspect, make sure there's fire extinguishers and smoke alarms and so forth. But I should think it would be difficult to schedule all those places. What about getting all that done? Does that have to happen first as well?
No, so that's a great question. We spent a fair amount of time talking about that when the ordinance was being developed, and so we've just recognizing staff limitations. If you've rented prior, we've given a 5-year window in which we do our inspections, but certainly we'll be reaching out to property owners this year, and we'll be working diligently on the inspections related to those. But there's a fair amount of properties that we need to get into, but we've given ourselves reasonable time to do that within the ordinance.
Okay. I have 2 more questions. I'll try to speed them up. Over at Goose Rocks, you've basically not limited how many short-term rentals can be licensed over there. But the implication in the ordinance is that if there's no limitation over there, then there would be a limitation in the rest of the town of Kennebunkport. And I haven't actually seen a figure capping the number of short-term rentals you're planning to issue. Is there one?
The selectmen will be reviewing the numbers and giving us a cap sometime during 2022, but they have not set it yet.
Okay. And is there any limit to how many short-term rentals any one person or entity can apply for and secure?
Not currently.
Not currently. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else? All right, we'll move on. Number 4, consider the following renewal liquor license and special amusement permits submitted by the Kennebunkport Resort Collection. Number 1, first one, Hidden Pond LLC, located at 356 Goose Rocks Road. The Kennebunkport Inn LLC, located at 1 Dock Square. Lodge on the Cove LLC, located at 29 South Main Street. ID1 LLC, DBA Clubhouse at Cape Arundel Inn, located at 8 Old Fort Avenue. Cape Arundel Inn LLC, located at 208 Ocean Avenue. Yachtsman Hospitality LLC, located at 57 Ocean Avenue. Tides Beach Club LLC, located at 930 Kings Highway. And the Boathouse at Kennebunkport LLC, located at 21 Ocean Avenue. And just to add, the staff has recommended approval of all licenses. These are all established businesses. Does anyone have a comment?
I do.
Okay,
I'm looking at, I have a question first of, I don't know if Jamie's here or not, but is the law still that in order to have a liquor license, you got to be able to sell, you have to sell food? That's the first question. And the second question is on the Arundel clubhouse at Cape Arundel Inn, why are we giving a permit if they have no food sales, no beer or wine, spirit sales, and no guest room? Why are we giving them a permit for their clubhouse?
Mike, to answer the second question, and that's a great question, and I apologize. I actually did follow up once I saw that application. Chief Sanford and I were talking about it, and we did follow up, and we had obtained the numbers after the fact. And I apologize that it did not make it into.
What are those numbers?
Give me 2 seconds, and I will. So for food, it's 4.1 thousand. For beer, wine, or spirits, they're reporting 6,000. And for guest rooms, they're reporting 711.8 thousand.
Okay, I'm just curious as how that gets into our agenda when it's a big mistake, because that was a question I had, and I even looked it up to see. I think you've got to have food sales if you're going to sell liquor. Is that correct?
I cannot confirm whether that is accurate. True.
Well, I just don't like getting that stuff and looking at it and have to ask questions, that's all. But as long as you're satisfied, I'm okay.
I understand your concerns, and I will ensure that that does not happen again in the future.
Okay.
and Jamie, just a question. Why do we have to have two liquor licenses and food permits when Cape Arundel, does Cape Arundel Inn, is the clubhouse just part of the Cape Arundel Inn?
My understanding is that it is part of it. Emma had explained that they had not, it's kind of like an empty space that they're using for gathering or small meetings or kind of overflow. I would have to look into, honestly, the history a little bit more to be able to accurately respond to that, but I'm happy to do so.
So
Yeah,
why are we giving them a permit for this if we don't know what the history is and how they use it? Why are we giving them a permit?
So this year it's a renewal. We had issued a permit last year, and we followed the same procedure. I would request that I go back and kind of follow the history and see why we've approved it in the past and what the changes were for this year.
I guess the point is you and the chief are okay with it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Jamie, I mean, maybe you could follow up. I just don't know why we're giving out two.
Sure.
I
I'm
agree.
happy to do that. And I apologize. I'm just not prepared with that information tonight.
Yeah. Do we want to hold out the Cape Arundel Inn or just pass it because there's no obstruction anyway?
Well, our town clerk has verified what their sales were and so forth. I'm completely satisfied with that. I just don't like zeros showing up on a permit.
Right.
That's all.
Okay. So the motion is on the board.
Second.
Motion.
Well, I need somebody to pass
Oh,
it.
we know.
Motion.
Okay. There was a delay, so okay. Second.
Okay. And we will start with Pat.
Yeah, aye.
Aye. Mike.
Aye.
Alan.
Aye.
Ed. Ed.
Apparently I was muted. Aye.
Muted.
Okay. And Chip.
Oh, that's me clicking this pen. Sorry, I'll get rid of it.
All right, well, then on number 4, everything passes. Moving on to 5, consider the renewal license and special amusement permit for the Rumline Motor Lodge, DBA Rumline Resort, located at 41 Road. I will repeat myself, but
What is that?
would somebody like to make a motion?
No.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Pat,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and I myself. So there are four passes, 4 ayes. And we're moving on to number 6. Consider the renewal liquor license and special amusement permit submitted by Tailor Made Hospitality, DBA Hurricane Restaurant, located at 29 Dock Square.
So moved.
Second.
And the roll call is Pat,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and I, motion passes. And number 7, consider the renewal liquor license submitted by W&A Incorporated, DBA Cape Pier Charter House, located at Pier Road.
So moved.
Second.
And Patrick,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and Phyllis says aye. I'm assuming, Alan, you're recusing yourself.
Correct.
Okay,
Frozen.
motion
Calling
passed.
the orders.
Item 8, this is the proclamation celebrating 75 years of Kennebunkport nurses' position. We are pleased to celebrate 75 years of public health nursing in Kennebunkport. And I have to find my paper. Excuse me for just a minute. It's here somewhere. Okay, here we go. Allison's here, okay. Whereas the town of Kennebunkport created the town public health nurse position on May 1st, 1947. Whereas functions of the public health nurse in 1947 included visiting expectant mothers, checking vital signs, monthly visits to infants during the first year, visiting children with health problems, holding monthly child health conferences, immunizing children, providing well child clinics, testing people for tuberculosis, formation of community loan closet, and whereas functions of the public health nurse in 2021 include visiting patients of all ages in their homes with a focus on senior citizens, establishment of a welcome baby program full of resources for new parents, continuation of the loan closet, availability of office hours at the public health department, medication disposal, sharps disposal, establishment of senior enrichment activities for the community, monthly blood drives coordinated with the Red Cross, participation in the Tri-Town community for disaster preparedness, water quality monitoring at Goose Rocks Beach and Colony Beach in conjunction with Maine Healthy Beaches, certified foot care nurse, including monthly food care clinics, COVID testing and education for the community, RSU 21 staff and students, town staff and local business, establishment and oversight of a town employee wellness program, administration of general assistance welfare. And whereas the public health office provides families in need connection to the Secret Santa program, backpack program each fall, food pantry, holiday meals, community coat, hat, and mitten drives, and fuel, food, and special needs assistance. And whereas there have been 17 dedicated nurses serving the town of Kennebunkport over the past 75 years, these nurses have touched many lives, including residents, town and staff, school staff, and local businesses. Now, therefore, we, the Selectmen of the town of Kennebunkport, do hereby recognize the nurses of the Public Health Office as vital resources for the community of Kennebunkport.
Wow.
Well, I know that was a long one. Allison,
have a
you,
A
That's
little
wonderful.
history, but also some of my information is a little bit of repetitive of what you just said, so I apologize. But
okay.
I just wanted to say that, yes, we are celebrating the 75th anniversary this year. And the first nurse was hired May 1st in 1947. And her name was Florence Nightingale. No, Florence Poirier.
Betsy Ross.
And she worked for the town from 1947 to 1961. And since
wow.
then, we have had 17 town nurses, Judy Barrett being the longest working town nurse of 33 years from 1983 to 2016. There was a long process prior to hiring that first town nurse, which dated back to May 12, 1943. During a health council meeting on this date, Miss Borage spoke of the need of a full-time nurse in this town. And it stated in the minutes of the health council that if the town would raise $600, the state would give an equal amount, making it $1,200 for the cost of a full-time nurse. From 1943 to 1947, the health council meetings mention every meeting that they're still working on procuring a town nurse. And on January 10th, 1947, Mr. Campbell, who was the chairman of the Red Cross, stated that the directors meeting would be held on Thursday, January 17th to discuss assisting the health council in obtaining the town nurse for Kennebunkport. Miss Helen Dunn, who was the state director at the time, explained the Enabling Act. And the Enabling Act was a service formulated 2 years prior in 1944 to help communities with a population of 6,000 or less. And under this act, the state agreed to share equally with a town or a group of small towns the expense of a nurse's salary and transportation. The nurse must have been a qualified, recognized public health nurse and an employee of the state. And to be successful, the nurse must be assisted by a well-organized, active local volunteer committee that would assist her in planning and carrying out the health programs of the town. Such nurse would be expected to provide services in the following lines of work: prenatal and maternity, infant and preschool, control and prevention of communicable diseases, school health problems, necessary bedside care, which was $1.25 per visit to go to the homes, promotion of health education. The early years of the 1940s and 50s, the town nurse seemed to be focused mostly on school children and what they called child conferences or vaccine clinics to administer the vaccines, and medical examinations and monitoring for malnutrition. Other focus was on newborn babies and their mothers, which with prenatal checks in the homes. And after the babies were born, they did mother and baby checks for a year every month to make sure that they were doing okay. Other home visits for older folks did happen, monitoring illnesses, monitoring blood pressure and heart rates. And you fast forward to the present day, and we have all of those things, Sheila, that you mentioned, Welcome Baby with the health program, but we don't seem to be too involved with the babies and the mothers as much anymore, as there's pediatricians and obstetricians that do all that now. Most of our patient visits are the senior citizens, and we don't hold the child conferences at the schools due to school nursing. We do have flu clinics, blood drives, COVID testing, vaccines. We continue to be educators of the community and try to offer health activities and educational lectures. Even though our world has evolved and changed a lot since 1940s, we do seem to be providing much of the same offerings in our community as they did way back when. And we plan on celebrating all year long, hosting monthly events throughout the year. We started this month hosting a lecture about scams with Officer Candace Simeone from Kennebunk. It was very well received, and Officer Simeone and Detective Corey Tardif from Kennebunkport will be working together to provide monthly lectures scheduled until June on various topics related to scams and security. We have other lectures set up with a professor from University of New England coming up this spring and in the fall. Her name is Marilyn Gallucci, and she's a phenomenal speaker. And if you haven't had a chance to hear her speak before, I highly recommend that you come. We're hosting a bicycle rodeo in July for the younger community members with the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. And they will set up a course for kids to learn the rules of the road, signs, turning, and importance of helmets, and how to have a whole lot of fun. We hope you'll join us during our year-long celebration. And I would like to thank the town for always being supportive of your town nurse.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, everyone.
That was good. Someone needs to make a motion to approve the public health nurse proclamation. So as of the 27th day of January, 2022, this is the proclamation recognizing the 75th anniversary of the Kennebunkport public health nurse. So we have a motion to accept. Do we have a second? I need a second.
Second.
All right,
There we
there
go.
you go.
Thank you.
I was muted, sorry.
Sorry. Pat,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Ed,
He's muted.
he's muted.
It's muted.
Am I making too much noise, Dave?
Did you?
I didn't mute you the second time.
No, I don't know what's going on.
All right. Then I'm
I
assuming.
did say aye.
Okay, seeing it now.
Sorry, Sheila.
It's okay. And Sheila says aye. So the motion passes. Congratulations, Allison.
Thank you, everyone.
Number 9, fiscal year 2021 audit presentation by Hank Farah of RKO. RKO.
Yeah, Dave, can you bring Jeremy Hank for up to the panelists? And I'll let Denise Brown introduce Hank and the audit.
Coming on. Good evening, everyone. I'm Denise Brown, the Finance Director. Tonight we have Hank Farah joining us from Runyon, Kirstein, Willett, who's our audit firm. He's going to give us an overview of the town's financial status at June 30, 2021. And he, I believe, is going to need to share his screen. And I don't see him. Oh, there he is.
He's there.
All right, hello everyone. I wish I could follow something like a traffic ordinance instead of celebrating 75 years of nurses, because I feel like audit talk's just going to bring down the good mood after that. But you know, in all honesty, I really never have much bad to say, if anything at all, when it comes to the audit of the town of Kennebunkport. Little transition year this year. Went from Jen Lord over to Denise Brown, and Denise likes me so much that I audited her twice in 2021. I got to audit her when she was up in the city of Gardner, and then she came down to deal with me a second time. I'm surprised she's still sane for dealing with me 2 times in 1 year, but it was really great. Jen left this place, I think, in a really good spot. She had a ton of information ready for me before then, but we kind of switched some audits around, and then Denise took it past the finish line. And I'm going to share my screen to go over this graph presentation I have, and I think you'll be happy with all the results I share. All right, let's see if I can do the right one here. All righty, so I'm hoping that's working right. It should be.
Yeah.
So first thing I want to start about is with the summary of audit results. Your financial statement opinion is unmodified. That's a clean opinion. That's what you want. Means things are fairly stated in all material respects. We say fairly stated in all material respects because we do not test 100% of the transactions. but I feel we've gathered plenty of evidence to render that clean opinion. We also issue reports required by government auditing standards. This is where we take a look at your internal control over financial reporting and let you know if there's any sort of material weaknesses or significant deficiencies within that internal control structure. Happy to say, no material weaknesses, nor any significant deficiencies. So clean all around audit report. This year, there was no single audit. The single audit threshold is $750,000 of federal expenditures in 1 year. You guys are well below that figure, so we only go through the government auditing standard compliance requirements. So let's start with fund balance. That's usually what everybody wants to talk about. We have a 5-year comparison where the 2021 is on the left side and getting older going to the right. Overall, your fund balance increased almost $950,000 from the prior year and to a total of a little bit over $6.1 million. There is in your financial statements, which they're now the annual comprehensive financial report, it's ACFR now, they changed the acronym. Pages 47 to 49 will give you a good breakdown of what makes up your categories of fund balance. You can see committed is around 730 some odd thousand, and assigns at 225. Some of the things that make up committed is your carry forward balances. There's multiple general assistance types of donations that you carry forward. There's the Goose Rocks Beach Advisory Committee. You have a legal reserve you carry forward. All of that is within that committed line item. So let's talk about why your fund balance went up so much. And we're going to focus on the budget to actuals in the general fund. And I really suggest going to Exhibit A2 within the set of financial statements, because you're going to get a lot more detail than what I'm going to show you on these two graphs. And you can really get a lot more information. And those are kind of the two, that's kind of the one schedule I like to point everybody to in your financial statements is this, because it's your budget to actual and the most detail in your reports. Overall, you can see excise taxes came in more collected than what was budgeted. Intergovernmental came in over budget, mostly due to state revenue sharing, and you received some COVID funding during the year. I think the COVID funding was almost 90,000, slightly under that. Licenses and permits came in over budget, mostly due to building permits, and I'm seeing this all around the state where everybody's issuing a lot of building permits. Charges for services surpassed the budget, mostly due to Goose Rocks Beach receipts and parking ticket revenue within the town. And then interest earned had better interest rates and just more cash in the bank during the year, and that helped some of that interest revenue come into the door. And one thing I want to point out on here, and I love pointing this out, it's this utilization of prior year surplus. And that's what you're budgeted really to use for fund balance during the year. And if all those variance numbers above in the revenue lines were zero, like everything you budgeted was on target. And then when we go to this next graph with the expenditures, if everything in those variance columns were zero as well, your fund balance would have been down 610,000 during the year, because that's what you're budgeting to use. But instead, you could see that you had almost $1 million to the positive variance in revenues. And on the expenditure side, let's see, why aren't we going over here? On the expenditure side, you can see that the expenditures came in under by around 1.2 million. We'll talk about some of those variances. The one I want to talk about first is committed, this one at the bottom. And that's really your carry forward amounts. A lot of times it may be for a capital project or certain types of items. So these are amounts that are kind of carried forward until the project's done. So you can see a large unexpended amount, but that amount's being carried forward in that committed fund balance into the next year. General government under budget due to some unused contingency and overlay that's within that line item. Public safety savings and wages and benefits. I believe there is 2 less officers within the town during the year, and that's what's causing that to be so far under budget. Public works, light winter, less salt in the winter months. They had some savings, I believe, on overtime during that time period as well. Health and welfare had savings within solid waste services and wages for health. Some of the wages for the health were covered by FEMA. Recreation, the director retired and was not replaced for a portion of the year. So that came in under budget as well. So let's take a look at where your fund balance showed up. And unassigned fund balance is a percentage of budget. And I believe Denise is going to be talking about your capital improvement transfer after this. And you can see your unassigned fund balance just barely over that 18% threshold in 2020 at 18.07. And you guys had a small transfer in the next year, which I'm going to talk about in a later. You'll see the difference between the two transfers. And then you can see this year, 2021, that unassigned fund balance jumped up a lot because, again, your fund balance increased by almost $1 million. So you would expect your unassigned fund balance to increase like this. So sitting at around almost 24%, which is the highest it's been here in this like 5-year window. I do like to show revenue distributions, basically showing you where your general fund revenues are coming in from. And I really like to focus on local taxes and state funding. And the town of Kennebunkport, you probably don't need me to tell you this, but you're pretty much a minimum receiver of state funds. You're covering a lot more in property taxes and excise taxes and not getting that much state funding. Property taxes, relying on those pretty much level with the last year, which was a little bit over 87, a little bit below 87 this year. Excise taxes still pretty much the same, and then a slight dip on the intergovernmental. And I think last year you got some MDOT funding. So that Maine Department of Transportation funding, usually for one-time projects, one-time large projects. You didn't have that same thing happening in 2021 that you had in 2020. So that's where you're seeing that dip in that percentage there. Onward to the last two, and I like to kind of go between these two graphs, and it's really a pie chart of your expenditures in the general fund. And there was really only two big movers this year, so I'm kind of going to flip between the two. Debt service is up, so you can see debt service here on the left. Back in 2020, it was about 2.1% of all your expenditures, and it's up to about 4.3 this year, and it's more debt payments kicking in for those new bonds in 2020. So those principal payments are coming due, and that's increasing that percentage a bit. And then the transfers out, and these are your transfers to capital. This took a pretty big dip from around almost 3% down. So it was at 5.74% and 8.5. And that's where I want to kind of go back. Let me flip back to this graph, because this is where you could see in 2019, you had 20% unassigned fund balance in 2019. And so you had a larger transfer to capital in 2020 because you were above that 18%. And now in 2020, when it's comparing those 2 years, you were only 18.07%. So that capital transfer was much lower in 2021. So that's why you're seeing such a large decrease, because a big chunk of that transfer out portion is that capital transfer that's made up of what's above that 18%. So I must say there was seamless transition between going from Jen to Denise. I think going from one person to another, I think the town has went from a great finance director to another great finance director. We really didn't have issues in the past during the audit, and really what I was auditing this year was Jen. Denise really wasn't there at all during the fiscal year, but I don't think you're going to find any problems in FY22 when whoever comes to do your audit then. I don't know if anybody's told you, but this is the last time you're going to see me as your auditor in this meeting. And I want to say that I've enjoyed working with the council here a lot, with the board. You guys have been great, whether someone coming in to have to meet with me, whether it's like Pat or Alan coming in and getting bored with audit talk. It's always been a great conversation with everybody, and I've had a great time. I think I've been working on the town's audit for, I think, about 6 or 7 years now. So I just wanted to let everybody know it's been a great time working with everybody, and I think you're in fantastic hands with Denise coming on board.
Thank you, Jared.
All good news.
All good news.
Yes. Thank you, Hank, for your expertise. We wish you luck in your new endeavors. I'm sure you and I will be talking before then.
And you could call me even after I leave.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks, Hank.
Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Hank?
No.
I had one small one, but I'll wait. Do we, on the 401k for the employees, I was unaware that the town has some kind of a match. Is that correct?
Oh,
It's
this one
the,
can't be for me.
it's, we have two retirement systems. One is the Maine State Retirement System and the other is an ICMA 457 program. And employees are given the opportunity to join one or
Right.
both. And we do have a match.
And what is that? What is the percent? It doesn't say here, just. But we
On the
matched
Main,
$91,000. I was just wondering what it was.
yeah, on Main State Retirement, it is depending on what plan they're in. So like public safety has a different percentage than
Okay.
other employees, but it's around 8.9, I want to say, percent, maybe. On the police, it might be at 10.3 or something.
But
And then on the ICMA, it's at 6% match if they don't choose Main State, and if they do, then they can get up to a 2% match.
so every employee has the same opportunity?
Every employee has the same retirement opportunity.
Oh, I want to know, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
We just need a motion to accept the audit.
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. And
Hank, good luck.
yeah, thank you, Hank. You've been very good. Pat,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and Sheila says aye. Motion passes. Good luck in your new endeavor. We'll move on to item 10, authorized transfer of the capital reserve fund in accordance with the fund balance policy. And I think
Okay.
Denise,
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna see if I can't share my screen as well. Okay, each year, after you've been given an update on the audited financials and in accordance with the town's fund balance policy, we ask you to authorize the transfer of the amount of undesignated fund balance in excess of 18% to the capital improvement fund. Because of the previously discussed added revenues and conservative spending, the amount we are recommending to transfer is $1,264,394. You can see here the balance at 6/30/21 was $469,000. And in the current fiscal year, we have budgeted to use $325,000 of that towards current year capital costs. Transferring the additional 1.2 million would bring the new balance to $1,408,661. This amount would then be available to fund future capital improvement needs, of which you were given a presentation at the last Board of Selectmen's meeting. You'll be seeing some of those capital costs in the proposed FY23 budget. And I would also like to take the opportunity to thank Selectman Mike Weston for his very thoughtful memo in regards to that capital improvement presentation. Are there any questions?
I have none. Okay,
Well,
I need. Go
I'll make
ahead,
a
Ed.
motion that we transfer $1.264394 million to the capital projects general capital improvements account.
It's capital
It's a
reserve,
mouthful.
capital reserve fund.
I'll second
It
that.
says here. Okay, but that's not what it says on this sheet, but
It says it on my sheet.
it says here, the capital
So
project.
listen,
Am I reading the wrong line?
So listen, we would just, I think either wording gets us there. So the capital reserve fund balance would be great.
Okay. I
Okay.
have-
I'm not going to argue about semantics.
Okay. Pat,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Alan,
aye,
Ed,
Aye.
and Sheila says aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
And thank you, Lori and Denise. And if by some chance Jen is watching, you guys did a great job with our budget over the last, well, especially during
That's
COVID.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And we are reaping the rewards as we speak. So you deserve a lot of credit.
it was a hard budget, wasn't it? To figure
It
out
was a
what we
tough
should
one.
do.
Twice.
Yep. Okay, item 11, presentation of Goose Rocks Beach water quality report.
There I am,
Alice.
back again. So tonight Megan Sims from Maine DEP and I are just gonna give you an update on what we've been doing in the Goose Rocks Beach watershed area in 2020 and 2021.
So Allison, do we need John Dykstra here as well for the storyboard, or are you guys gonna cover
No,
that?
we're all set. I mean, I
Okay.
don't know if he's in the audience and if he wants to chime in, but I think we're all set.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so Megan Sims from Maine DEP.
Hello, everyone. Just making sure that you guys can see my presentation. Can you see it yet?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, just give me a second to pull the rest of my documents up in front of me. All right. As Allison shared, I am the program coordinator for the Maine Healthy Beaches at the Maine DEP. I am going to provide an overview of some of the water quality monitoring efforts that Kennebunkport has been involved in. These include beach water quality monitoring through our program and also additional watershed monitoring work in the Goose Rocks Beach watershed. My hope is to be able to give you a quick overview of our program and then explain how that program relates to the work that Kennebunkport has been doing in the local watershed monitoring efforts. Our program is a statewide effort to monitor water quality at coastal marine beaches. So we're focused on saltwater beaches. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency provides the funding to our program and similar programs across the country for states to implement these monitoring and notification programs. And our program currently partners with 29 management entities. Those are towns and state parks across the coast of Maine, Kennebunkport being one of them. As part of that work, we're monitoring approximately 65 what we call beach management areas. I don't call them beaches because in many cases, beaches are large enough that they're split into separate management areas to make specific management decisions for. And that is indeed the case for Goose Rocks Beach, where we have 3 separate beach management areas. Those beaches are dispersed across Maine's coast. We extend from Kittery to Mount Desert Island at this time.
So Megan, just so you know, the slideshow isn't going through slides.
It's not? Oh,
No,
thank you for letting me know.
I was just gonna say something.
Well, here we go. How about now?
Now we see a close-up. It's a slideshow, resume slideshow.
You see what?
It's
See
a
the slideshow?
it's a close-up of a menu bar.
All right, bear with me just a second. Let me reshare. Can someone let me know what you're
We're
seeing now?
good. It's
Yep.
good now.
That's at the beginning.
All right, well, we're gonna skim through some of that. Let me just move my screens over because it changed the way my screens were oriented. All right, we'll skim through those. You're still seeing my slides, correct?
Correct.
You're seeing a map. This is
Now we're
just an
seeing a map.
Yes, okay, good. Thank you, Lori. I appreciate it. So Our program, it works with all local volunteers who are trained by our staff to collect these samples. This is different than other beach monitoring programs across the country where these samples are collected by state staff or public health departments. So Maine is a bit unique, and Kennebunkport has a crew of volunteers who are collecting samples for your beaches. Those samples are analyzed at regional laboratories. We are analyzing them for what is known as a fecal indicator bacteria, or an FIB. This indicator is specific to marine waters, and it's called Enterococcus. You may be familiar with the indicator that's used for freshwater, which would be E. coli. We are testing for Enterococcus because it is a marine water environment. These bacteria are just an indicator of fecal waste from any warm-blooded animal. They don't tell us where that waste came from, if it's human or human or wildlife or another organism. And they are used by Maine and other states to inform public health notification decisions. So we're not testing for specific pathogens known to make people ill if they're in contact with that water, simply because there are too many to test for individually. It is cost prohibitive, and our labs aren't set up to perform those types of tests. So the Environmental Protection Agency recommends using these fecal indicator bacteria as an indicator of possible pathogens in the water. View watercolor results for participating beaches, including Kennebunkport's. You can go to our website at mainehealthybeaches.org, and you can select the Check Beach Status button. This button will bring you to our dashboard where you can view water quality results, and you can also view any advisories that are active at that beach and any historical advisories that have occurred at that beach for that year. You can also access this via Kennebunkport's public health website. It is also linked to the dashboard. Once our monitoring season ends, which is typically Memorial Day to Labor Day, our program performs annual assessments of the data to both understand the overall water quality for all of our program's beaches, all 65 of those beaches, but also to identify beaches that we consider high risk. And that just means there are more frequently elevated bacteria results at those beaches than there are at other beaches. And those are the beaches that we prioritize for additional monitoring and other program resources. You can see in this image where I have this red circle around Goose Rocks that in our 2020 assessments, Goose Rocks Beach was identified as one of our high-risk beaches, as were many other beaches across the coast of Maine. Now I'd like to share a few recent water quality trends for Goose Rocks Beach. Those are from 2020 and 2021, and share some efforts after that have been done to try to better understand these results, looking at the entire watershed for Goose Rocks Beach. Just to orient you to the beach and the sites that are monitored, we have 4 sites representing 3 what we call beach management areas. At the bottom of this image, you have GR5, Goose Rocks Beach, Batson River. At the top of the image, you have GR1, Goose Rocks Beach, Little River. Each of those sites is managed as a separate beach. And then you have the main beach here in the middle with GR4 and GR2. So 2 monitoring sites are being currently monitored at those beaches. Now, to orient you to some of these figures, it looks like a lot, but the message here is to show you 2 years worth of data for each of the sites that are monitored at Goose Rocks Beach. For each site, you have 2 figures, except for GR4, you have 1. 2020 monitoring season is on the left and 2021 is on the right. The blue color indicates the samples with bacteria results that are below our bacteria safety limit. So this means those are samples where bacteria was not elevated. Orange represents samples with bacteria results above the safety threshold. So you're looking at the percent of all of the samples that were collected during that season and how many were above and how many were below. And you can see that for the most part, we have blue, which is great. That means those samples did not have elevated bacteria. But there are 2 sites, GR5 at the mouth of the Batson and GR1 at the mouth of the Little River, where we do see elevated bacteria more frequently. Site GR2 is near GR1, and what we have noticed, especially in the past couple of years, is that that site also experiences periodically elevated bacteria levels, but a little bit less frequently than the river mouth. There's a bit more flushing in those areas. GR4 did not have any elevated bacteria for the past couple of years. This figure is showing you the same type of data. It's showing you the percent of samples that are above our safety limit. So the percent of samples that are representing those with high bacteria. And this is just for the 2020 monitoring season. We haven't finished our 2021 efforts. Overall, most of the beaches that participate in the Healthy Beaches program have very few or no elevated bacteria results each monitoring season. It's typically just that there are a handful of beaches that contribute to the what we call exceedances that we see. So the samples with high bacteria. Those are the ones that we consider to be higher risk. And I'm showing you with this red line here our overall program's exceedance rate that year. So overall in our program, the percent of samples that were over our threshold was about 9.5. And you can see how these beaches that I've identified compare to that threshold. Goose Rock's Beach is the last 3 bars in the figure. You have the Batson River, the main beach, and the Little. And what I've done is provide you with some examples of other beaches considered high risk that are near your region in southern Maine. Those are Cape Nettic Beach in York, Little Beach in Agunquit, and Riverside Beach in Agunquit. And you can see that 2 of the Goose Rock's beaches, Batson River and Little River, show similar water quality trends to those other high-risk beaches that have similar characteristics, namely being located at or near river mouths. In these situations, our program works with communities such as Kennebunkport and others. We're trying to better understand where the bacteria is coming from and how to best support towns with remediating that bacteria, because we want to see improvements to water quality at downstream beaches, and we want to support the towns with informed decision-making for those areas. Typically, our program provides that support through assistance with monitoring activities, but we also can provide some technical assistance as well when requested. We're typically monitoring for the bacteria that I've already explained to you. We do monitor other parameters as well when we're able. The bacteria monitoring piece can be especially tricky because it can come from many diffuse sources, humans, wildlife, pets, and it makes managing bacteria sources and managing water quality issues a very difficult task. Especially for beaches such as Goose Rocks, and I'll explain why. Goose Rocks is the mouths of the Batson and the Little River have marsh systems that are just upstream from the beach sites that are monitored. And this is particularly challenging because these bacteria can persist and regrow in the sand and the sediments that are in those environments. And when we have tidal fluctuations and we have rainfall, that bacteria that lives in the sediments can be transported down to the beach and result in elevated bacteria. Because it already exists in these environments, it can be quite difficult to discern what the sources are and to figure out how to manage those sources because that we don't know where they're coming from. And so this is not only a challenge for Goose Rocks Beach and the town that's been trying to address, and Kennebunkport who's been trying to address these issues, but for many of the beaches in our program as well, where we have similar situations. Better understand the bacteria results, we've been working with the town of Kennebunkport to monitor for bacteria and other parameters since 2018. We have, when possible, incorporated some DNA testing to try to better understand, as I said, the sources. This has allowed us to test for sources such as humans and birds and canines and ruminants to try to help the town better identify and manage potential sources that may be contributing to these bacteria results that we're seeing. This work has also continued through 2021. I will say that Kennebunkport has had many successes, including successful identification and elimination of potential bacteria sources impacting water quality. And the work is ongoing to continue to address those concerns. I'm now going to let Allison share a bit of a recap of Kennebunkport's effort in the watershed over the past couple of years, particularly as it pertains to outreach.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I see, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Good. I see that you have somebody standing on the Mill Pond Dam that flows into the dam, so you do testing there?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Okay. I was curious about that. So that's one of your test sites?
Yeah, are you talking about the picture on the left here?
No, you had a picture several slides ago of somebody standing on the Mill Pond Dam, which
She's right
flows
there.
into the Batsons.
Right here?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. You're correct. I just wanted to make sure I had the correct area because I'm not a resident of Kennebunkport, so I can get the details confused.
There you
So
go.
yes, definitely. Yep.
Okay, so that's a good start. I'm glad you've been testing there for quite a while.
Since 2018, yes.
Oh, good. Okay, great. I'm just curious.
All right,
you.
I'm just going to recap a few things here. So as you know, the town of Kennebunkport has been partnering with Maine Healthy Beaches program since about 2004. And the town has participated with the beach monitoring weekly from Memorial Day to Labor Day, monitoring the water quality at the beach and informing the public when we have elevated bacteria levels. The public's been notified of the results with signs at the beach entrances where beach stickers are sold and posted online on the town public health website. In 2018 through 21, the town increased our monitoring to include sampling from the watershed that feeds up into Goose Rocks Beach. And this includes sampling up the rivers of the Smith Brook, Tyler Brook, Batson River, Beaver Pond, and Little River. All of these rivers join and flow out to both ends of Goose Rocks Beach. Samples were taken multiple times throughout the spring, summer, and fall and sent for bacteria levels and some specific DNA sampling. The town also performed septic investigation, sewer line investigation, and storm drain investigation during this time down at Goose Rocks. And our efforts were to try to understand the contributors of bacteria at Goose Rocks Beach. In 2021, after much discussion and interpretation of the results of our work in the watershed, the beach was divided into 3 separate beach areas because they have very different water quality trends and potential water quality issues. This is so that they could all be managed separately. That way, when the advisories are posted, they aren't posted for the entire beach. Our work has shown that most of our elevated bacteria levels are located at GR1, the Little River, and GR5, the Batson River, which are the 2 ends of the beach where the rivers come into play. The majority of the time, the main beach, Goose Rocks 2 and Goose Rocks 4, are well under the 104 threshold. Also in 2021, the town partnered with UNE and we brought on interns to help with our projects. We convinced John Dykstra, who is a huge interest in all this work, to help with the interns because this nurse has no concept of plotting data, trends, and mapping or GIS work. We took on a spring intern and a fall intern that worked with data entry and compiling all sorts of information. We hired a storybook map GIS specialist to work with the intern to create a storybook map to increase the awareness for the community on what a watershed is, what's contributing to our bacteria levels, and how as a community we can help lower contributing factors at the beach. I will show that storybook map at the end. So outreach and education, we've provided educational materials to the community with best practices for septic maintenance and what to do with pet waste, lawns for lobsters through magnets, brochures, and links on the public health website. The town's also changed the beach sign notification in 2021, separating the rivers from the main beach for advisories. And currently we have finished up our storybook map to share with the community for education.
Thank you, Allison. As Allison said, I just wanted to put a plug in for the work that John and the intern had done for the data compilation. They worked long and hard at collating all of the historical and recent data into one master data set, which was a very important step for any assessments of the data and any interpretations moving forward. So it was a huge effort that they undertook. I just wanted to share that one of the interesting ways that this data set can be used is to create plots to help explain the information in a more easily understood and digestible way. So this is just the start of being able to share that information and in a way that is relatable and understandable to the general public and those who don't have, a certain background in data analyses. This is an example of the cover of the story map, which we are going to share in just a moment.
And next steps going forward, we are planning to continue watershed monitoring with DNA sampling to identify potential sources and address issues when they arise through target investigative work. We want to increase awareness of our watershed through education to the community, utilizing our new storybook map, public health website links, brochures, etc. The storybook map is going to be posted on the town website for people to look at anytime they want to. And we are going to seek other partnerships to bring awareness and understanding to the Goose Rocks Beach watershed. Megan, can you share that storybook?
I am pulling it up right now.
So we'll just go through it, but I'm not going to click on the links that, because there's a lot of links in the storybook map that'll bring you to other websites for more information. That'll just take forever to do all that stuff, so you'll have to go do it on your own sometime. Garrett Cooper was our intern from UNE that is a senior at University of New England, and he did this work. It came out really good. So it's called A Tale of Tide and Turf. Goose Rocks Beach is a small, popular beach located in Kennebunkport along the southern coast of Maine. The beach is home to unique wildlife species. One of the most well-known is the piping plover, a small endangered shorebird that returns to Goose Rocks Beach each spring to lay eggs and raise its young. Goose Rocks Beach is not just home to a diverse array of wildlife. Kennebunkport residents and seasonal visitors also find a great joy in its unique sand and gentle, family-friendly surf. Goose Rocks Beach extends for approximately 2 miles between the mouths of the Little River to the north and the Batson River to the south. The beach offers recreational opportunities along the main beach and at the 2 estuarine beaches with long, well-developed sandbars located near the mouths of the Little and Batson Rivers. What is an estuary? It's a body of water where fresh water, such as that flowing from the Batson and the Little Rivers, mixes with salty ocean water. Located upstream of these estuaries are tidal salt marshes. Tidal movement causes ocean water to flood in and drain out of these salt marshes twice a day. These marshes are important to the watershed as they provide valuable benefits to the overall ecosystem. These benefits include water filtration, protection from flooding and coastal erosion, critical habitat for shorebirds and other marine habitat, efficient carbon sequestration, and support of recreational activities. Everyone lives in a watershed, but what exactly is it? It is the land that channels precipitation, rain or snow, into a body of water such as a river, lake, or an ocean. This water is typically transported through smaller rivers or streams. As it travels, the fallen rain or the melted snow can pick up pollutants, including bacteria, from various sources, such as pet waste left on lawns, sidewalks, and roads, birds or other wildlife feces, fertilizers and pesticides, runoff from impervious surfaces like parking lots or roads, and improperly maintained wastewater systems. This collective flow is also known as stormwater runoff. The Goose Rocks Beach watershed is composed of 3 sub-watersheds. the Batson River subwatershed, the Smith Brook subwatershed, and the Little River subwatershed. Though the majority of Goose Rocks Beach watershed is located in the town of Kennebunkport, a portion of the Little River subwatershed is located in the city of Biddeford. The town of Kennebunkport has been participating in Maine Healthy Beaches program, conducting water quality monitoring of fecal indicator bacteria at Goose Rocks Beach for over 15 years. What are fecal indicator bacteria? Fecal indicator bacteria are bacteria associated with fecal matter of humans and other warm-blooded animals. They are used to indicate a possible presence of pathogens or disease-causing organisms. A single FIB is used because there are too many pathogens to test for individually. The indicator bacteria themselves may not cause people to get sick, but their presence suggests pathogens might be present that could make people sick. The specific FIB that Maine Healthy Beach monitors is Enterococcus, which is the EPA recommended indicator for marine waters. Kennebunkport's long-term water quality activities have shown that elevated Enterococcus levels are more common at the two estuarine sandbar beach areas at the mouths of the Little and the Batson rivers. Enterococcus levels are higher during low tidal stages and can be significantly elevated following moderate to heavy rainfall. Stormwater runoff is one of the major reasons for high bacteria levels at any coastal beach. At Goose Rocks, the large tidal salt marshes with their associated freshwater inputs from streams and storm drains further increase bacteria levels. This is because bacteria can live, grow, and multiply in marsh sand and sediment. When the tide flushes through the marsh system, these bacteria can be transported downstream. This is particularly true during astronomically high tides or after significant rainfall. To communicate these findings, Kennebunkport has signage located at public beach entrances to explain under which conditions the beach and river mouths may experience elevated bacteria. Kennebunkport has also continued to work with partners such as Maine Healthy Beaches and others to monitor water quality at the beach and in surrounding watershed and expand outreach efforts to the public. Now that you know more about how things that happen in the watershed can affect water quality in our rivers and in our beaches, what can you do to help keep Goose Rocks Beach a safe place to swim? Become a beach hero. Volunteer with the town health department at Maine Healthy Beaches in supporting water quality monitoring for Kennebunkport's beaches. For more information on the town's water quality monitoring, you can click there and it'll take you to the public health website. Or if you want to volunteer, you can click there too. Always remember to pick up after your pets. Pet waste can contain bacteria, parasites, and excess nutrients, and negatively impact overall water quality and threaten human health. Remember, when it rains, any pet waste left behind will be flushed from lawns, sidewalks, and streets directly into storm drains, which by design quickly find their way to the tidal rivers at each end of the beach. Make sure to regularly inspect and maintain your septic system, and if not properly maintained, aging or malfunctioning systems can contribute to human bacteria in the tidal rivers. Stay informed about the current water quality. Be on the lookout for specific water tags below the town signs posted at the beach entry points, informing you about the adverse water quality conditions. The blue sign is a river contamination advisory, posts when the bacteria levels are at the mouths of either the Batson or the Little rivers are found to be elevated above EPA established level for safety. The orange contamination advisory is posted when the bacteria levels at the beach are between the two rivers are found to be above the EPA established level of safety. And the yellow rainfall advisory is posted whenever there is significant rainfall, such that the runoff flowing from the storm drain system would have the probability of raising bacteria levels above the EPA established safety for both the river mouths and along the beach in between. Please remember, beach monitoring is only Memorial Day through Labor Day. And this is the website to Maine Healthy Beaches to find the beach status and all the results, and Kennebunkport's website.
Thank
And
you.
that's it.
Very good. Very good report. And John, if you're listening, thank you for your help as well.
Yes, thank you, John.
So any questions or any comments from the board?
That was a great report.
Was.
Very extensive.
Well, it was very explanatory. It makes you realize it's not only on the water. It's the runoff from all yards and roads, etc. So very interesting. Okay, thank you very much.
We also have members of the Goose Rock Speech Committee in the audience. I don't know if any of them have any questions for Megan while they're here. But I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand. So I'd really like to just thank Megan for her work on presenting this information.
Very nice.
You know, we're just one of the many places she has to watch over, and we appreciate all her efforts.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 12, authorization of the radio tower project contracts.
So we have Chief Sanford and Chief Everett with us.
Hi. To save a little time, I was gonna do most of the talking. Obviously, Chief Sanford can answer any questions directed on the PD side of the system as well. But so you're gonna have to listen to me talk for a little bit. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring you up to date on where we're at. We've gotten, as you saw in your packet, we've gotten the contracts. We've gotten what the system actually is going to be, the pricing, and a third-party determination on that this is a good deal to move forward for the town. So if you remember, we started pre-COVID meeting to discuss issues with the communications on the public safety side of the radio is where it kind of started with the lack of signal strength and our outdated equipment that we can no longer is supported by the manufacturer. As a group, we had sat and discussed a radio system that the whole town would be able to use, addressing all the needs for any entity in town that would use it. We started with the Motorola rep that we've always used to maintain our system now. They've always been super reliable and do a great job for us. So that was two-way communications in New Hampshire. So we asked them into our meetings to provide technical expertise and assistance on developing this radio system that would meet all of the needs now and in the future for the town. The system's going to call for 2 transmit and receive sites. That's what's going to make our range better by getting the signal out farther, where currently we're just using the 1 site at the police station, off the water tower on the police station. So you have the total proposal in front of you. It's a joint venture between Motorola and Two-Way. That Motorola designed the system and is going to build all the components especially for the public safety side, police, fire, and EMS. And Two-Way will handle the rest of the system in what like highway and wastewater would use. It's just a different quality of radio. It doesn't have to be like in the public safety sector, not as ruggedized and things like that. And it's actually cheaper to do it the way they're have proposed it. Two-Way will also handle all the installation of all the equipment, all the things in the cruisers, fire trucks, and the towers and things like that. So as we went through it, we kind of realized if we went to a different we wanted to stay with Motorola because we're always very happy with their products. And if we did that, we were going to end up we're going to be dealing with Motorola anyway, the big company. And we've always had good luck with Two-Way. So we wanted to stay there. So we looked into having a third party look at the entire proposal, and not just for price, although that's a big thing, to make sure that we're getting what we need and we're not paying more than we need to, but to make sure that the entire system was designed properly, is going to do what we need, is expandable like we might need in the future, and things like that. So the third party consultant was a gentleman named Peter Denut from Envision Analysis. And you have that in the packet. Those are all the things that he was charged with looking through for us. So really, we're at the point where we are looking for the approval to keep this project going. We do have a timeline of the 15th of February, where we would have to absorb a price increase from Motorola if we don't sign off on this proposal here, just so you know. The proposal that was being funded by a $1 million bond that was voted and passed last year, and $500,000 that we have put in a capital reserve account over the last couple of years. So we're asking for the approval to keep this going forward and answer any questions that you have. The expected timeline is from when we start, probably if get approval. If we start in February, 9 to 10 months, but that's without any holdups from manufacturing things out of our control, like we're seeing everywhere across the country right now. Anyway. So,
Jay?
Yes.
Since you've decided that you and Chief Sanford want to go with Motorola, I just want to ask, I trust you, but have you, since the equipment that we have now, if it was any older, I understand it would have been on the Flintstones, the new equipment, do you personally or any of your colleagues in other municipalities, have you seen the new equipment and are they satisfied with it?
Before I left my other life, the city had changed to the same type of equipment that we're looking at, and it was very robust for what we need. It was tough. It worked good in the environments we're gonna put it in.
Okay, I assumed that was your answer, but I wanted to hear it.
Yeah.
So I'm good with this. I think you guys did an excellent job, and I think hiring the third party to look into this was a very good idea.
Chief, have we? This is Mike. Did our attorney look at the contract? Has any attorney that we've paid looked?
Yes. Sorry. Yep. They went through it and came back to Lori and had a bunch of questions. We got those all answered. There was one question that they pretty much changed everything to what we wanted it to be, which was changing a payment schedule. They ended up at first, the contract read that they were going to get paid over half the total amount before we even had stuff starting to be installed or in place here. So we got them to change that. There was really only one issue that they wouldn't do, which was because of Motorola using other people's equipment that they don't have control over, was changing a warranty there. We did get them to change their warranty. They wanted it to start as soon as the stuff was delivered. And we got it changed to as soon as when it shows up and is installed and goes on to it. There's two ways we can go. We either sign off once the system's in place and say it's good, we're good with it, we sign off, or that we are, because of possibly a breakdown or something like that, are forced to use it earlier than we would like. That's when the warranty would start.
I also see that we have to provide a project manager for this job.
Yep.
As a part of the statement of work. Do we have one in-house or do we have to hire one?
Well, we hadn't really talked about hiring one. I think based on the experience that Chief Sanford and I have, along with Eric LaBelle, who can oversee the technical things of putting these towers up, the engineering side of that. We think we're pretty good. I'm certainly not opposed to talking about it, if that's what would help the comfort level.
Who's the point of contact? It said we're supposed to have a single point of contact. Who will that be?
We hadn't decided, but I'm assuming it'll be either Chief Sanford or I.
Well, it's got a lot, going to take time. That was my concern, but if you guys think you can handle it, you know, I'm not the judge of that. The second thing was, it says we have to facilitate an acquisition of all property. Don't we own the property?
One of the towers is going up at Goose Rocks Beach, and we don't own that station. So I do have, we did enter a 20-year lease for $1 with them to be able to put a tower up that the town will own, but it's on their property.
So the rest of it is all set then?
Yes, the other tower is going into wastewater and then what we already have at the PD and dispatch.
That's all I have. I just would advise you, after being through many very large projects, that project management of a task like this is not an easy thing. So I hope that all of you together can handle it.
Hey, Chief Sanford, you're happy with everything, right?
Yes, sir, I am. We put a lot of work into this. The town manager's been very cautious in making sure that all the checks and balances have been carried through with, and yes, I'm very happy.
Thank you. Good presentation.
Good. Thanks. A lot of work.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any more questions? Lori, do you have anything?
We're just looking for authorization from the board to sign the contracts and award it.
I'll make the motion.
Yeah.
Oh.
Second.
Make a motion to award the contracts and authorize the expenditures to Motorola for $1,130,500 and to Two-Way for $345,370.
Second.
All right. Pat,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and Sheila says aye. Motion passes. Good luck, guys. This is a big,
Good luck. Yeah.
big
Thank you very
project.
much.
It'll be nice to be able to talk to dispatch. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. All right, item 13, discussion of short-term rental enforcement. We have Eli and Werner.
Good evening, everybody. We have two items about short-term rentals outlined in the two memos included in your select board packet. Werner's going to lead the discussion on the short-term rental enforcement. But before we do that, we'll just do on the following page is the short-term rental update memo. And I'll share my screen here and I can read it aloud for folks following at home. So these numbers are as of January 20th. We had 410 total applications that were submitted. 391 have now been approved. There's a very small handful of stragglers that we're getting through. I anticipate that'll probably be done by next week. It's generated approximately $160,000 in registration fees. And then we did a little bit of analysis to try to answer some questions that we thought you might have. So we found that there were 355 unique license holders. There were 8 applicants that had 3 licenses each and 20 applicants that had 2 licenses each. And just for clarification, there is a license required for each dwelling unit. We found that there were 159 units that were managed by property managers or someone other than the owner, about 40%. And we found that there was 106, I think it's approximately 100 licenses, or 25% were granted to applicants whose mailing address was Kennebunkport or Cape Porpoise. And so 75% whose mailing address was not Kennebunkport or Cape Porpoise. At the moment, well, when this was written, there was approximately 28 unregistered short-term rentals currently advertised. It is a little bit of a moving target. I think the last time I checked, there's approximately 22, but that does change because the software is kind of constantly updating as it scrapes the internet for sources. So during this process, the application deadline was December 31st, and there have been, I think, about 6 people who have reached out who missed the deadline for one reason or another, but who appear to otherwise be eligible. And so I believe that there are some who either plan to write to the select board or even attend tonight's meeting. So I don't know if there's opportunity for them to speak tonight. But I think in conversation with Lori and Werner, we were proposing a late registration period to both accommodate those individuals, but also it would be advertised for everyone and to try to help get everyone into compliance. So those applicants will still have to meet the same eligibility criteria, including the 14-day rental history prior to December 31st. So nothing else has changed. The late registrations would be a double the normal fee, which is their standard penalty for late permitting. And we're going to do our best. We would do our best effort to notify residents through newspapers, our contacts with local real estate property management companies, the website, and direct mailings. And lastly, I'll just include some public reminders for those listening at home, and then we can answer any questions you have before moving on to enforcement. License certificates are emailed upon application approval. If you have not received an email with your license certificate yet, please check your spam or junk folder. License certificates can be resent upon request by calling or email the code and planning office. Earlier this week, I did send a second email to each license holder. So at this point, if anyone hasn't received their license, please give us a call or send me an email. Again, there's no defined eligibility requirements yet for renting in 2023 and beyond. People who purchase homes or wish to begin renting short-term in the future will have the opportunity to apply for a permit each October for the subsequent year. However, potential future caps may limit the total number of permits issued in a given year. Properties purchased in 2022 will only be allowed to rent short-term if the prior owner had obtained a permit, and that includes Goose Rocks Beach. And code enforcement will contact property owners and property managers to schedule rental unit inspections. The ordinance requires inspections every 5 years. Therefore, not every unit will be inspected every year. If there's any questions, we can try to answer them, or else Werner can take on the discussion about enforcement.
All right, so
let's pause. So there are a couple of people, I think, with their hand up in the audience, and I believe, based on the names I see, that they want to discuss the ability to open the registration period again. And I don't know what the board's thoughts are on that.
Well, I think if people want to speak, we ought to let them. So, Dave, can you let?
Hi there. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Great. My name's Eric Levin. We originally purchased 31 Beechwood Ave in the port as a rental property. But then during the pandemic, myself and my family moved up, enrolled the kids in school. And I got to tell you, coming from Boston, we've had an amazing time in the town, great people, great schools, and are currently living there. However, we did a full gut renovation on the property, which basically makes it a bit out of reach for us financially and requires us to rent it. This past summer, we rented it for the month of July, and we'd like to do similar this summer. I didn't realize there was a deadline until I got a piece of mail that had been redirected to a new address from a former that was changed during the pandemic. And it was December 30th when I found out there was a deadline. I emailed, I think it's Andrew at Code Enforcement with the hopes of delaying my application. I haven't heard back, but I since learned that this deadline is in fact a real deal thing. And I'm hoping that I'm able to still register, given that my family needs this in order to afford the property moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there anyone else?
Hi, I'm not on video, but can everyone hear me?
Sure.
Yes.
So I'm a resident at 10 Langsford Road, and I unfortunately missed the beginning of this meeting. I'm still at work. So I'm not sure what discussion may have already transpired about 15 Langsford, but obviously our neighborhood group is very concerned about the activities that have been taking place at 15 Langsford Road, which is owned by KRC, Kennebunkport Resort Collection, previously Lord and Harrington. And, hearing Mr. Levin speak, there's absolutely no question in my mind as a human and a fellow community member that I would imagine that's exactly the type of person we want to be offered a short-term rental permit. On the flip side, I just want to make absolutely sure that given the track record of noncompliance and, I think we've probably also had some gaps in our town's ability to properly even oversee KRC as they've moved so aggressively over time. Given that history, just want to make sure that they would not be one of the constituents offered a dispensation as it relates to a short-term rental permit. That would be very disruptive and very disturbing. But we might consider, for example, if we want to open up the process for someone to apply for a hardship. And it might offer the opportunity for the individual residents of the town that would be put under hardship by not having the license to make a case for themselves. And then the only other thing I would say is, the only unfortunate thing is I spent some time in the code office over recent weeks, and I've heard residents calling in, and I've heard our awesome office personnel in various, this specific person was in the code group, to just very firmly and repeatedly emphasizing that there would be no applications accepted. And whoever was on the other end of the line was really upset and may never get this notice. So I think we just have to be mindful, and maybe that hardship application would be the right approach. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Dave, anybody? Okay.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you can see me or not. I guess cameras are reserved for people who are sitting there. Anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I would actually like to begin my comments by telling you, and a little bit following Ms. Rubin's comments, that when I contacted the town hall to ask about this, I got nothing but wonderful people who responded in very positive ways. Eli was one of them. Hi, Eli. Nice to see you in person. So I would like to put a plus on the customer service side. And being treasurer of my city here in California, I know how important it is to service the local community residents who pay taxes and be polite and kind. Anyway, long story short, I live in California. My ancestors on my father's mother's side go back to Kennebunkport, 1653. They came over with Governor Winthrop. When I was a very young woman in my 20s, I bought a house in Goose Rocks Beach. 1980 was the date. And my family has kept that house since then. My parents lived in it when they retired, before they died. And until we moved to California, we spent tons of time there. We've rented it in order to keep it, in order to keep it in the family. We haven't been there for 2 years during COVID. I did not receive any mail, any letter. I don't know how you communicated. We don't live there, so we can't go by, Bradbury's and see the notices up on the board. And I just think this is the first year. I'm happy to pay double, but I think you ought to give us a grace period.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anyone else, Dave?
Since I've already taken up some of your time, just very quickly, I'd like to second Tara's suggestion. Just listening to it, it just makes tons of sense to me that this be done as a hardship, because I think both of the stories we've heard make it clear that there are some real hardships there, as opposed to. But I think for businesses and for the like, the deadline's the deadline. But for those that did not receive notice, and for whom this is a hardship, I think that's a really good way to solve those problems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry, just very quickly, two other ideas. We could provide that hardship opportunity, or we could welcome late applications for up to one rental unit per property, or two, right? But many, I was unable to find another town in Maine that has a short-term rental ordinance like this that doesn't place a cap. It's very concerning. We will be looking to get a revision to the ordinance onto the ballot. And in the meantime, certainly if we were to lift this cap, that would be a measure that would ensure we were doing it for the right reasons and for the residents of the community that we want to take care of. And I'll let the code office respond, but I think Goose Rocks is exempted, are they not? Thank you.
So, as we all know, of course, it's correct that the Goose Rocks Beach neighborhood is exempt from any cap.
Dave, I'm just going to make a comment. For anybody who wants to raise their hand and speak, please make it something different than what we've already heard.
It looks like everyone's spoken at this time, so I don't know if the board wants to discuss the extension or whether you want to go on to enforcement.
Well, I can tell you, I don't have a problem extending it for another month. I really don't.
Yeah, and I also don't have a problem extending it the way Werner or Eli explained it. In it'll be double the fee, but I don't mind opening it up again. Mike, how do you feel?
Well, here we go again with, part of the short-term rental was that we had a concern that, and if you look at Eli's numbers, 25% are owned by people who are residents of Kennebunkport and Cape Port and Goose Rocks and Kennebunkport and Cape Porpoise. And one of our concerns has been absentee owners renting property, coming in and buying property and then putting it on a rental market. And that's one of the things, we had a lot of people telling us, well, we only had 100, maybe 150 people. And we kept saying, no, there's a lot of them. And when we've got 25%, 75% are absentee owners, I say, I have a hard time extending for that. So, and I think that, I'm not heartless, but I'm just saying that was the intent was. And then what happens if we extend it, we've sort of thumbed on our noses at the people who met our requirements and registered by the December 31st. So that's my take.
Okay. Pat, how do you feel?
Well, we're at the end of 1 month overdue or past application date, and we're just now hearing from these people. So I'm wondering what kind of operation they're running. I think any late application should pay a penalty, and doubling the registration fee is feasible. But I think this is a one-time thing, and I would say to anybody going forward, next year, I can't imagine approving any late applications. But if we want to extend this application date since we're at the end of January, already 1 month overdue, another 2 weeks. All right, if you can't get your paperwork in the next 2 weeks, you don't get a license for this year, basically. That's what I think.
Okay. Alan?
Well, I said it before, I have no problem extending it. Perhaps Pat's right, maybe a 2-week extension. But I would like to see some form of an extension because of a few people actually did not know that we had a deadline.
And this is
not informed.
Ed, what do you say?
Well, I'm a little of two minds on this. Part of it says, like what Mike says is, hey, we did our promulgation, and I don't care who you are, you have some due diligence on your own self to know what's going on in the town that you own property in. This was well advertised and certainly well attended in our meetings. And while I don't do social media, I understand it was all over that. And I had lots of phone conversations and in-person conversations with individuals. So I don't buy into the fact that the town's on the hook because some people didn't find out. And I believe that they didn't find out, but I'm sure that New York City doesn't mail everybody, send something to people in the mail for every ordinance that they make. And we certainly don't do that. I think we went above and beyond our responsibilities. However, that being said, I am fine with giving a little bit of amnesty here to people who qualify, meaning that they meet the requirements. And I think that's what Werner and Eli are saying. These would only be for people who, otherwise would have qualified, other than the fact that they're late. But we're not going to make hardship exemptions, etc. This is going to be, anybody's got a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever we decide to get your paperwork in. Period.
All right. Well, would somebody like to make a motion to extend the licensing process for the month of February? Do you want to make it for the month? Do you want to make it for 2 weeks? I think a month is good. And my last comment is there's only a handful of people that have come forward to who missed the deadline. I think because this is the first year, it behooves us to actually give them a chance. That's my feeling on it. So
I'll make a motion that we extend it 2 weeks.
Second,
Second.
all right. Is that, Lori, do you think that's good enough?
So one of the things that, and I'll let Eli and Warner speak to that, but one of the things we originally talked about a 2-week period. And I said, if we're really trying to capture everybody, will the word get out in time or will we be back again before you? And so, you know, we thought giving the month of February would let that word travel. I also learned today that we do have people who own property who are out of the country. And due to a mailing error, the ones that were for out of the country did not end up getting received. I don't know how many of those people would have rented their properties or not, but Werner and Eli, do you have anything to add?
No, but that is correct. We were notified today that, you know, that there's an error in the international mailings that went out. And so that's, you know,
How many?
It seems like there was somewhere between approximately 15 property owners with international mailing addresses. And of those, there's only one that I'm aware of that is actively advertising a short-term rental.
So do we want to keep it for the two, Werner and Eli? Is 2 weeks enough or would you prefer the month? I mean, can I do that? Because a motion was already made.
and second.
I guess the only maybe the biggest reason that we had settled on the month was that if part of the aim was to help bring more properties into compliance, that because the mail is kind of variable, that having the full month would really ensure that we could send mail to those properties and make sure that they have received it and that they can apply.
Eli, do we know how many properties we're talking overall?
Yeah. Do you mean properties that are currently unregistered?
People who you are going to send letters to?
Yeah, it's between 20 and 25.
And those are all past renters, Eli?
Those are people who are currently advertising short-term rental but have not obtained a license.
Okay, so that's your last point as of January 20th. Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're asking for is not these 2 or 3 people that talked tonight. What you want to do is to see if we can get our arms around the ones that you've identified as advertising in VRBO or whichever, but have not complied with the regulation. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think part of this came from also, so if the next step, and we'll talk about enforcement in a minute here, but if the next step would have otherwise been to send a notice of violation to those 20 some properties that say that they are out of compliance, there would be no avenue for them to come into compliance. And so the thought was that alternatively, if it was set up with a late registration period, we could send that letter and there could be an avenue for them to come into compliance.
Okay, I understand better. So I'll change my motion. I'd make a motion that we extend it to February 28th.
Yeah, I'll second that too.
That was a good explanation, Eli.
Good. All right, the roll call, Pat,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Ed,
Point of clarification, are we going to charge them a late fee or charge them double like our other ordinances?
Yeah.
That's what we said.
That's
yes.
right. That's what we said. Yes.
Okay. Yes, aye.
And Sheila agrees. Okay, the motion passes. Good, so the month of February will open up for the late people.
We're open now.
Yep. Very good. Now we're going to discuss the rental enforcement.
Sure. Yes. So, and just on that note, thank you for, extending that time frame. What I anticipate, for us is that, we've dealt with the broad brush of properties, through the mass, through a mass mailing process. And now it's really getting into the minutia of reaching out to these individuals, finding their phone numbers, things like that, that just takes a little bit of extra time. Again, with the goal of really just, helping bring folks into compliance to make sure they don't, miss the opportunity. So thank you.
Go get them.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and share the enforcement memo that is part of your packet. And so what we have outlined here is just what we would expect to have for an enforcement process. So what we have is we have complaints. We'll have complaints that will come through, and then of course we also will have properties that are just that are renting non-compliant. But the process that we envision that complaints potentially come through host compliance, through the phone hotline that's set up, website form, and also the police department. And so as the way the ordinance is set up, all of those complaints get reviewed by code enforcement, for validity of, and relevance and evidence. There's, as we've discussed before, part of the complaint process also involves, this reach out that happens to the registered agent, of the property, and that's something that host compliance takes care of. That whether it be a property manager or the owner receives that call notifying them as well. And so, once we have good cause for for a violation, then what we would be doing is following the process outlined in ordinances, issuance of a first notice of violation, that would come in the form of certified mail, alerting the owners, regarding continued non-compliance and what could potentially occur, as a result of that non-compliance. And we've outlined, those possibilities here, up to and including revocation of the license, denial of license, and potential fines. And then, the second stage, should we not get compliance with the first notice of violation, would be the issuance of a second notice of violation, certified mailing, again, following kind of the first process. And should we not obtain compliance in that fashion, at that point, per the ordinance, that action would be brought to the Board of Selectmen for a hearing that could include that revocation of license, denial of license in future years, and potentially that fine, that could be recovered in, through a court action. So that's what we have, outlined in terms of potential process for enforcement. Just so folks understand how we would look to proceed with that. And again, these are, this is for substantiated, violations that get, investigated and that have relevant evidence associated with them.
So we distinguish between people who just decide that they're not going to comply versus people who have a noise violence or trash, I don't know, whatever it is, police complaints or whatever. And we distinguish between those people? Because there are going to be some people who are going to say, the heck with it, I'm going to rent and I'm not going to comply. And we owe it to our people who have complied that we have some type of enforcement for that situation.
Yes, so we don't have a separate distinction here between those two types, although that's, we know that that's going to be, that's going to be part of the case, that we're going to have folks that, that don't comply because they don't have a license, right from the get-go. But, we'll follow that two-step process, in that case.
Why would we have a two-step process for that?
Well, the first would be essentially a cease and desist, would be to, for them, to stop, the activity because they're not licensed to rent.
So the reason for a two-step process is because one, we tell people to stop, and if they do, then it ends there.
Okay.
If they don't stop, we have to go to the board for additional action.
I got you. Yep. Understand it. The other thing would be that somebody who, okay, if they stop, it's over. That's what you're saying. And then they would be, if there's, what happens then if, for instance, we have a cap, they haven't registered. We found them in violation because they're renting without a permit. What happens? How do they apply? How do they get back in? If we have a cap and there's only so many licenses available, they got to go in line. Is that it?
We would tell them to go on the waiting list.
Then I think that should be in the, the ordinance or whatever, the enforcement memo. I really do. If that's what we're going to do.
I agree with you, Mike.
Yep. No, thanks.
We were starting with the violations we could see from here, but certainly that's our plan with the cap. And when you set the cap, you can give us additional feedback on how you want us to handle it. But our thoughts were we would have a waiting list.
Okay. I just don't see that somebody who decides that they are going to ignore the ordinance and think that they can get back in the next year. It just, to me, is not the way that we wanted to set this up. That's all. And it's not fair to the people who have registered, at all. So that's just my take.
Yep. No, thank you for the feedback.
So we don't need the board to take any action at this time, but we did want to answer for you how we plan to handle enforcement, get any feedback or comments or different direction if this is not what you envisioned.
Yep.
Good job. I mean, everybody's done a good job. It's terrific.
Werner, have you, or Eli, have you contacted any other towns on how they would handle or how they are handling people who rent, who don't get a license? What do they do? What is the procedure? Any penalties?
Portland certainly does.
Yeah, I mean,
does.
I think at the end of the day, it's the last recourse is a court action. And that's language that I've seen in most of the other communities that have short-term rental ordinance. They kind of similarly follow several steps, maybe a revocation, the eliminating the possibility to get a license in the future, hopefully will be a, encouragement to stop. But at the end of the day, it comes down to court action to seek fines under the Maine state statute.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to know what the procedure was. I mean, all I could picture was us sending our police in and
No.
with a sign saying cease and desist. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to kind of type up a memo summarizing whether it really varies. Some communities have hearings where the complainant and the police chief will kind of have a public hearing. Some I don't know. I think there's quite a variety, but it seemed like in conversation with Lori and Werner that this seemed like a pretty good fit for what we had in mind. So
Okay, thank you.
We spoke to Amy Chow at length about it.
Okay,
This was her recommended action as well.
okay, thank you.
I just want to thank the code guys and ladies for a great job that they have done with this and the thoughtfulness they put into getting it right, getting it up to date and done. Good job.
It's been a
Yes.
long haul, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, it has.
And it was very nice to hear from the people who phoned in, who said that our town employees were professional and polite and congenial, very nice to them. It means a lot, right? And I know sometimes it can get testy, but I think we have a good staff in our town office, and we thank them.
Sheila, just so you know, there is a person in the audience with their hand up.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, just very quick question. So there is not a cap this year on the number of licenses?
So
No.
the answer is that this year you had to have proof of renting.
Right.
Like one of the past 3 years. So we're only taking in people who have already done it, but we have no cap on that because we didn't know what the number of that number.
Understood. Okay, just, in future, hoping that it's not like first come, first serve, but there's some consideration for past renters. But thank you very much, Lori. I appreciate that.
Yes. Hi there, and I apologize. Maybe I probably have not followed this as closely as I should have. But the issue that I'm questioning is the requirement that I hope is just for this year as you get into a new ordinance, and is the issue of having to have an existing rental history on a property if you want to. That's only for this year. Okay, because that could have a major impact on people that own a property and then their family circumstances change and somebody, like us, we live here full time. We're not renting now. We've rented many years in the way past. But if we both kick the bucket and it goes to our son, he's probably going to want to be able to rent for part of the season. So I'm very glad to hear that was a surprise to me. And I'm glad to hear that is just for this year and not something that you anticipate continuing going forward. Correct? Correct.
Correct.
Good. Thanks very much.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. I'm Laura Borland. We own property at 43 Mills we just bought in December, and our family's owns 2 houses on Langsford Road, and we've been, for a long time invested in the Kennebunkport and Cape Porpoise community. Like Tara, I have concerns about how the short-term rental ordinance will be applied to commercial properties, and specifically 15 Langsford. So I have a quick question about the historical enforcement of short-term rentals, even pre-ordinance. And specifically, I understand that properties that are zoned as residential multiplexes are disallowed from acting as short-term rentals even prior to this ordinance. There was a letter from the town's attorney on May 28th to the owners of 15 Langsford stating that it was in violation of short-term rental compliance due to both the 2020 condominium conversion permit and the declaration of condominium, as well as the town's land use ordinance. So I'm wondering if past non-compliant rentals will be counted as a qualification for the new short-term rental permit and how that will be enforced.
Werner, do you have any comment or?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll speak, to the circumstance generally as it would relate to, potential other, multiplex properties. So previously, the town did not regulate the short-term rental of residential dwelling units, and so that could include single-family dwellings, that could include duplexes, that could include multiplexes. They were not regulated as short-term or long-term rentals. So with the advent of this ordinance, there's, as we know now, there's a licensing process, relative to that. The ordinance also does not differentiate based on ownership. However, I think, as we've, been dealing with situations and circumstances at other properties, commercial ownership does present, unique circumstances and challenges that we've been working through and dealing with the town attorney. But I think the question on whether or not multiplexes were disallowed from being short-term rentals, that's not the case, in the sense that the town did not regulate short-term rentals prior to. We have other multi-unit buildings, structures in town that are residential. For instance, thinking of Arlington, Arms or something, places of that nature that are, technically multiplexes that could have also qualified for, those individual units could have qualified for STR licenses.
Anything else?
Yeah, sorry, this is Laura Borland again. I just want to have one follow-up question for Werner, which is, have I misunderstood the letter from the town's attorney on May 28th that says that the owners of 15 Langsford should not have been renting the property as short-term rentals, and that it was, though not specifically disallowed by this ordinance that was not in effect yet, was not in compliance with its zoning status, call it last summer?
The circumstances.
The issue at 15 Langsford is specific and it probably needs to be discussed in more detail. And I think Werner would be happy to do that outside of the meeting, just because it's complicated and it's not a simple yes or no.
Are you okay with that, Laura?
I am, as long as it will be discussed and it won't be automatically approved as a short-term rental permit without opportunity for the public to have comment. It was a very well-organized, grassroots effort around them when they were applying for their in permit, and none of us were heard because they withdrew that application. I want to make sure that this isn't a subversive attempt to go around that process and create a de facto in through the short-term rental process.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Understood. And, happy to discuss it further with you, Laura.
Thank you. I look forward to that.
Okay.
Hi, sorry. I just wanted thank you, Laura, for your thoughtfulness, and thank you all for hearing us. Just to confirm, there was no opportunity for the public to talk about the implications of what was happening at Langsford Road, and so can we confirm there will be some type of a public hearing so that dialogue can take place, and that it won't be just kind of subjected to private conversations pending Werner's availability? That doesn't seem fair to Werner or to the residents of our community.
So just to be clear, the short-term rental license process is not a public hearing process. It is a license and it is issued between the town clerk and the code enforcement officer. And so you certainly can have conversations with Warner. The Board of Selectmen act as the appeals board in terms of licensing. And so there is a separation there. In terms of the issues that have been brought up, I think Warner and I are in agreement that we have heard those concerns and understand them, and that is why no licenses have been issued on those properties, although they were applied for, and that we have the town attorney engaged in that process.
Okay. Anything from the board? Any other comments from the board? I think we can move on. Discussion of Goose Rocks Beach sticker sales for 2022. Hi, Jamie.
Jamie Mitchell here to discuss the sticker permit process.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So in your packet and in the memo that I presented, I really tried to streamline what the clerk office staff has identified as kind of one of our more inefficient processes, in that the time that it's requiring to administer the beach sticker program based on the current guidelines versus the revenue that we're taking in from it versus the onus that's actually on the property owners is seemingly outweighing the intent and purpose of the permitting program. Real estate ownership and kind of estate and tax planning has evolved to a point where we're seeing more real estate property owned by trusts and LLCs. And for example, in Kennebunkport, about 30% of real estate is owned by a trust or an LLC. What we are having to do currently is identify the persons that are entitled by reviewing all of the documents. It might be a trust document, it might be a membership agreement. We're trying to ascertain kind of the legal title and their benefit under those documents. And oftentimes those documents aren't available to some of the people that think they're entitled, because it might be their parents are the grantors of the trust and they don't necessarily have a copy, but they're a trustee or a beneficiary of the trust. We do not have the capacity to keep these documents. So a lot of times if you have 4 or 5 people that are entitled under one document, they're having to bring them in each and every time. We then have to take those documents and match it to the car registrations, which sometimes it's in a different name of a business and we're trying to match them, or a spouse is actually the member of the LLC, and it's their wife, and we're really trying to do a lot of puzzle piecing and matching the information. So this process sometimes occurs multiple times and it requires a significant amount of transaction time in an already taxing summer season. So I'm here to just request that the board maybe consider, my initial recommendation is perhaps limiting the number of beach stickers per property, and perhaps loosening up some of the requirements, such as requiring the car registration to issue the sticker. The most important thing, obviously, is that it's equitable and fair for all the citizens of Kennebunkport, and that it does not create any undue burden on the police department who have to enforce the process.
I'll start my comment. The Goose Rock, the stickers for residents should only be for residents, people who live here. That is what I consider a resident of Kennebunkport. So if people have their names on an LLC or a trust or whatever, it doesn't make them a resident.
So Sheila, just to point out the regulation, it doesn't actually say resident currently. It defines as a taxpayer. So
Okay.
that's kind of
That's
where the line gets merged. I apologize. It is a taxpayer sticker, not a resident sticker.
Okay. Pat?
A question for you, Jamie. Is there any reason why we can't limit it to say you have this address, you get one sticker?
So that's what I'm proposing. I think one is a little too low because you have a lot of families, you know, husband, wife, at least two. I think 4 is more equitable for larger families or families that perhaps share real estate. But again, that's just my suggestion based on what I'm seeing with the trends in the amount of stickers that are being purchased overall, and not just looking at a small subset of information.
Well, let's look at it from another different problem, and that problem is there's nowhere to park. So residents are getting squeezed. Residents are getting squeezed out over there. And I think if you, 4 per house or per residence, I think, you and I had this discussion, and my recommendation was that 2 per residence.
Right.
Period. And the other comment that I had made to you was, at least I think I did, but you know, I'm older now, so maybe I didn't. I think they should be affixed to a vehicle, so they can't be moved. What Kennebunk ran into this problem with Mother's Beach and other beaches, but people passing these things around, so that
Right.
in theory, what can happen is you can give it to out-of-state people, et cetera, et cetera. They can bypass the kiosk and everything else. And so unless you color coded them and said that, you know, that they got to be, you know, Maine license, it can't be. If you're giving them to a residence, they got to be anybody who is taxed, and you give them to a resident. So they may be from New York, or they may be from Connecticut, or they may be from Massachusetts. So I would recommend 2. My thing would be 2 per taxed resident, and then they need to be affixed to a vehicle. And that's because how are the police how are our beach people gonna be able to determine that that thing isn't just being moved around from somebody's car to somebody's car? It's not fair.
Back in the old days, they did it that way, Mike, and I think that's why they're affixed, because they used to put them on placards. Hotels and motels would buy them, and this was legal. And then they would put them in the back window, and then they would give them back. No, I'm with you. I wouldn't support anything that wasn't permanently affixed. And I think
they ask us to affix them now.
Yeah, but
yes,
the proposal is not. So the proposal is not to affix them.
Oh, I see.
So I'm saying it's just not a good way to go.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I will clarify, I don't disagree that affixing them to the vehicles might be a better process. The reason that my mindset kind of strayed from that is just back to the having to verify what the registration and the license plate says to the owner. So that's the only piece that I'm really interested, but I have.
But you don't have to. What's the difference? Jamie, what's the difference? You don't have to verify anything, because you're just going to send them to the taxpayer's house anyway, right? That's all you're going to do.
You're correct, Mike. I'm just saying right now that's the requirement. So I'm just trying to kind of eliminate the tight restrictions on it and make the administration a little.
Well, you're just going to mail them, right? The proposal is to mail them. All I'm saying is you mail 2 to a residence. They've got to be affixed to a car. We don't care which car it is.
Yeah, if it's not affixed to the car, it's not valid.
That's right. Yeah, that's correct. If it's not affixed to the car. Yeah. We don't care, because you don't care anyway. Well, because if you gave them 4, you're sending them to a house. Anybody could use them. You can hand write.
Right.
So if they have to be affixed to a car, They're not moved around, you know?
I
Anyway, suggestion,
agree.
suggestion.
I agree with you, Mike. So what you're
You know,
saying, Mike,
the other thing, oh, go ahead, sorry, Al.
what you're saying is, you just say if you wanted to give them two for that LLC, they're gonna stick those two stickers on two of their cars, and that's gonna be it.
That's it. We got
I think that's the way to go.
we've only got 172 parking spots, all right? And we have 1,000 people on a weekend, yeah? So people like me, people who live here, not just me, when my kids come here and I want to take them to the beach, I can't take them, most of the time, I can't take them to the beach because I have to take them and drop them off. And then I either have to, Janet, my wife either goes and picks them up, or I pick her up, and we have, you know, it happens not just with me, it happens with a lot of residents in this town.
Right.
And so it's just, so I think 2 to a house, that way you're eliminating somebody who's got 6 cars and you've got 2 to a house and you have to be affixed to a car. If the beach guys, the community officers ticket a car, because it's doesn't have a sticker, it's the same as now, but you can't hand it off to somebody. It's on the car.
Permanently.
I suggest permanently, yeah.
I mean, the other people could still buy a beach sticker.
Absolutely.
If there's more than, so, yeah.
All they gotta
I
do,
think you're right.
all you gotta do is go to the kiosk. Go to the kiosk and buy a sticker. Right?
You can buy a day sticker, yep.
Yeah.
But I think
Right.
the day sticker, how much is a day sticker?
A day sticker is $25.
Okay, this is where we're gonna get into trouble, because when the people go to the town offices, they want a sticker for $5. And they're gonna complain if they have to buy a sticker for $25. And if you send out stickers, there's I'll bet you half the town probably won't use them and will give them away. Because there's a lot of people in the town who really don't use well, you know, Mike, do you use the beach if you don't have company?
Yes, every Saturday,
do?
every Sunday,
Okay,
every Sunday morning for breakfast.
yeah, see,
Not every Sunday, but most Sundays for breakfast.
we don't use it. Yeah, I'm just afraid that if you mail out parking stickers, that there's gonna be too much of, you know, just handing them to different people.
Well, we're losing money. We're losing money by having the town people on a daily basis handle the selling of the stickers. Jamie's numbers are that it costs us $128 to do $100 worth of tickets. So
Right,
then
I saw that.
yeah. So, I mean.
Why don't let's raise the price. I don't know.
And not only that, Sheila, you've been in there, I've been in there when I'm trying to get the beach stickers and stuff. It's chaos for the help. It is, because you know, they can't help on other things and they're tied up. So it's difficult. So Jamie's right in trying to make it easier. We got to find a way to make it easier.
What if we just sent them vouchers that they bring in?
Yeah.
We're going to mail everybody a letter. So put a voucher in there, make it numbered. And then since we have computer technology, we can match it up and we'll know that each property is used their allotted number of vouchers. That's pretty simple.
So we'll come back with an idea on administration.
Okay.
I don't want to get too detailed, but I mean, right now we do have a process where we ask people to submit their things in writing by mail, and quite a fair number of people come in person, and we have to charge for them. So we do have to have some process. And so people would get their stickers. It's just the process we're using now, we're saying is not.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
But I would like to limit the number of stickers. I think given that we have a limited number of spaces down there, we can't just hand out, if a trust has 10 people in it, we can't hand out 10 stickers to them. That's not fair to the rest of the people in town, the rest of the taxpayers. There has to be a cap on it.
You're thinking 2 per property? Are people in agreement on that, or?
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea.
I do too.
And it doesn't matter if you're a renter, meaning long-term renter, or if you're an owner of a property, because that was mentioned in this. I don't want to differentiate people who do not own their own home but are residents of the town, because then we're treating them as second-class citizens.
That was me. Like I rent in town, and that's one thing that I wanted to make sure that people that paid some tax, whether it's excise tax or property tax, are included as they are now.
But the owner of your property is paying tax, and you're paying it in your rent, so you're paying property tax whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
I charge my tenants based on what my property taxes are.
Well, why don't
You
we
have
think
to.
of, why don't we think about it, and Jamie, you've heard us, take a look and see.
What we'll do is for your next meeting is bring you back some proposed language.
So,
Yeah,
sounds
this is a
good.
great start, and I think it's a great idea. Just need to hash
do
out
too.
the details.
I think it's a good idea too.
Yeah, good work, Jamie.
You rabble rouser.
Thank
And
you.
if people don't like 2 per household, you can send their hate mail to me.
I'll start writing the letter now.
What's that? I'll be out on the ocean. I won't hear them.
All right. So we'll wait for that different proposal. All right, we'll move on to item 15, approve shellfish license applications for 2022.
So moved.
Do you want to, probably ought to go through it, Laurie? Do you want to go through it and then?
Sure,
we'll-
I'll let Jamie do it. She worked on
Okay.
it separately.
Okay,
Yeah.
Very quick and simple, basically for resident clamming licenses, we are only, Everett and the committee have suggested increasing by 5, so that instead of 50 resident licenses, there'll be 55 available, and then there will be still 25 available for seniors. He also is recommending increasing non-resident licenses by 5, so that instead of 5 non-resident licenses, there'll be 10 available, 3 for non-resident seniors, and then 1 warden recreational license. And we did follow up with Everett and kind of inquire as to why the increase. And his belief is that the resources can sustain adding these additional licenses.
that was my question. That was going to be my question.
And we are
Jamie, did we?
recommending the same rules regarding the dates and the days of picking.
Jamie, did we sell all our licenses last year? All our resident?
Quickly, yes.
Okay, good. Good.
I believe that we had a couple resident licenses available maybe 2 days after they went on sale, but within 3 days, they had all sold.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Good.
And to remind people, this is for soft shell clams in the clam flats. This doesn't apply to hen clams, like at Goose Rocks Beach.
So, motion to accept?
So moved.
I second it already. Ed did the first. I'll do a second.
All right. And we'll take the vote. Pat,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And Sheila says aye, motion passes. Thank you, Jamie.
Hey, Sheila, when you gonna go get your clam license?
Tomorrow,
April 15th.
April 15th.
Okay.
You pay your taxes and go get your clam license.
There
Right.
you go.
1, 2, 3. Other business. We don't have to, it's a short-term rental update, but we already did that.
We already did that.
Yeah. All right. Pat, do you have anything?
No, nothing, Sheila.
Mike?
No, nothing.
Alan?
I'm all set, thanks.
And Ed?
No, nothing for me, thank you.
And I have nothing. Lori? Other business?
I don't. We've done a line share work tonight.
Woo.
8.
All
I
right.
move the warrants.
Okay.
Pat?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And I say aye. And to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, yes.
Hey, happy birthday to your dad, Lori.
I will. And
Yeah.
Yes.
93.
Yeah, absolutely.
93. So
Wow.
just to remind you, we do need people to come in tomorrow morning. We'll have a lot of signatures.
Yep, be there. Okay.
I'll
I'll
come
be
by.
here early in the morning.
Yeah, you will.
No. All right. So we are now formally adjourned.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
It's good to
Thank
see
you.
everybody's faces.